Let me welcome you, my dear students. This is our 12th learning session of short fictional narrative with BS English 3rd semester. My dear students, let's discuss the outline that today we are going to discuss. Introduction to Chopin, title significance of the story of an hour and plot analysis of the story of an hour. Now we are going to discuss the Chopin. When Chopin, who was born Catherine of Flaherty, means she was born on February 8, 1850 and she was died August 22nd, 1904. If we talk about the Chopin, when she was an American author whose short stories and novels explored pre- and post-war Southern life. Today, she is considered a pioneer of early feminist literature and she is best known for her novel The Awakening, a depiction of a woman's struggle for selfhood that was immensely controversial during that time, means during the Chopin's lifetime. If we talk about the Chopin's first publication, means Chopin's first published work was a short story printed in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Her early novel At Fault was rejected by an author, so Chopin's printed copies privately at her own expense. In her early life or early work, Chopin's addressed themes and experiences with which she was familiar. She was familiar with the North American 19th century black activist movement and the complexities of the Civil War and the stirring of feminism and many more. So 13 stories including Madame Celestine's divorce were published in 1893. The following year, the story of an hour about a newly widowed woman's emotion was first published in Vogue. It went on to become one of the Chopin's most famous short stories. Later that year, Beowulf, a collection of 23 short stories, were published. If we talk about the writing style, Chopin's style offers opportunities to point out the virtues of consciousness, strong and clear imagery. If we talk about the other style, that is the symbolism, understatement, humor, and irony. So Chopin was raised in a largely female environment during an era of great change in America. These influences were evident in her works. Chopin did not identify as a feminist or a suffragist, but her work is considered post-feminist because it took individual women serious as human beings and complex, three-dimensional characters. In her time, women were often portrayed as two-dimensional figures with which, if any, desire outside of marriage and motherhood. So Chopin's depictions of women struggling for independence and self-realization were unusual and groundbreaking. If we talk about her writing style, she mostly uses the point of view of virtue of consciousness and strong and clear imagery, symbolism, and understatement, humor, and irony. We talk about that she uses a beautiful imagery in her work. And as she was brought up in an era where the female environment or the feminism were taking place, so we find these things in her work. Now we are going to discuss the title significance, the story of an hour. So the title of the short story refers to the time elapsed between the moments at which the protagonist, if we talk about the Louis Mallard, hears that her husband Brantley, uh, we talk, we are taking or using his name, that is Brantley Mallard is dead, then discovers that he is alive after all. So, featuring a female protagonist who feels liberation at the news of her husband's death. So, the whole story consists of only an hour, and this was about an hour story. So, the story of an hour explains about the liberation and freedom and the happiness of a female in an hour. So it the if we talk about the title significance, so it explains about the story of that is taken place in an hour. Now we are going to discuss the plot analysis of the story of an hour. If we talk about the exposition, so the exposition of story of an hour is when Mrs. Mallard is sickly and suffers from a weak heart. Means her sister comforts her after she receives news about her husband's death. If we talk about the rising action, so let me tell you that the rising action of the story of an hour is when Mr. Mallard has been killed in an accident. Mrs. Mallard goes into her room and begins to think about her new life, free of her husband. It tells about the imagery of, we simply say that the imagery of a marriage means it was not a bad marriage, but she felt that her husband is killed now and he is no more. So it is the time of her own renewal. I mean, it was the time of her independence. So she was thinking about her new life that is full of liberation, that is full of liberty and full of freedom. Now we are going to discuss the climax. The climax of the story of an hour is when Mrs. Millard realizes that she is now free from her marriage in which she was happy. She walks down the stairs, goddess of victory. Means it tells about that the climax is when she feels that she is totally free and she is independent now and she is free of that marriage. Means it explains about the marriage, that marriage is not bad, but she was feeling in this marriage that she is like in a cage. If we talk about the following action, so the following action of the story means the story of an hour is when she walking down, Mrs. Millard comes through the door unharmed. Means it explains that she was so happy and she was just feel that she is free now and she walks here, means upstairs and downstairs, just feeling that she is totally freed, means totally free, and it explains about her freedom. Now we are going to discuss the resolution. So resolution of the story of an hour is when Mrs. Millard collapses from shock, that the doctor she collapsed with the shocks, means her husband is alive And when she gets this news, means her husband is alive, her heart breaks down, and the doctor says that she dies of joy, and joy that it was the joy that kills. Through the reader knows she dies of disappointment and despair. So it was about the plot analysis of the story of an hour. So my dear students, it was about our lecture. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.